How you doing, everybody? Thanks for stopping by and joining us today for another Rollin' Over the Hill on the Live to Roll channel. I'd like to give a shout out and thank our sponsors, mobility professionals and urology professionals. They're a great and helpful group of experts that are part of our community. So a big thanks to them. On today's show, we have a special guest, Ellen Stohl. She is a professor, writer, wife, mom, and an SCI. She'll be sharing her experiences and life story with us. So make sure you include your comments, views, and questions in the chat. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Soto. I'm a T12 spinal cord injury from a motorcycle racing accident almost 50 years ago. So now let's get started. I'd like to throw it over to my co-host. We have Luis missing in action. So Bobby, what's going on?
Not much. We send out a SOS on him, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll come in and join us soon once he looks at his text. But I'm Bobby Rohan. I was involved in a bicycle accident. Oh God, I can't remember now. 34 years, 35 years. It just all becomes
Yeah,
years after.
long
But
years.
T56. I'm complete. Manual wheelchair pusher still to this day, but I'm getting some assistance with little scooters and things like that that I'm testing out. And I'm from Orange County, California. But enough about me because we have a special guest. She is a dear friend of mine that we have known for. Uh, Robert asked how long, and I think what 30 years.
35 at least. So I was married 30 years and we knew each other well before I met
Yeah, because
my.
I went. Yeah, I
So,
went to your wedding.
yep.
So it's been too long. I remember when I was in rehab, and my one of my therapists, I think it was my OT, said, "I have a video for you to watch. You might find this very interesting. It's about this gal. She's on Donahue, about her being the first woman with a disability to pose in Playboy magazine." And it was really well done. Little did I know, maybe a year or two later, I got to meet her at a party, and then I got to know her very well. And we actually got to work together at summer camps. And, we had a wheelchair sports camp for kids, and it was Ellen and I were the directors of 50 kids. And somehow we got through the week. I don't know how, but and somehow we survived Fridays because Thursday night was always the night we went out and partied. So, but enough about that. I want to introduce Ellen Stohl, please.
Yes,
Thank
and
you so much.
I think at least 35 years, Bobby, because it was well before I met my ex. And there are a lot of nights at El Torito and a lot of fun. And that's how we got through the week of sports
Yeah.
camp. But yeah, I am a C8 T1 incomplete. I broke C5, C6, C7, C8, T1 in an automobile accident during the first rain of the season in January of 1983. I was 18 years old. I had no idea about this. I mean, I thought I did. I thought I was very open minded and accepting until I woke up in that hospital room and they told me I was paralyzed. My injury is incomplete, so I'm an incomplete quad, so I do have most of my hands, buttons, earrings, no thumb muscles, difficulty. But after living for over 40 years with my impairment, this is just the way things get done. So I've been incredibly lucky to stay active. But getting older definitely is, I always say that the chair doesn't change things, it magnifies it. So the general aging process for anybody is hard to deal with, but when you have an impairment, it's magnified. Everything is just a little bit harder. Accessibility becomes a little more challenging when you go out in the world and you have to encounter those accessible curbs with no curb cuts. You're not bouncing off them anymore like I used to. So trying to adjust to that, to life changes. I mean, it's amazing that life always changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And on Tuesday during our regular Live to Roll with Tom and Shawn, we were talking about, sexuality and sex and relationships. And I think, when we think about that, and I think about the number one person that kind of helped pave the way and open it up to us having a discussion to it now being talked about and now being, recognized as, yes, just because we have a disability, we are still sexual human beings. We still can have it.
Yes, we just sometimes have to be creative, and actually we can have better sex because the insert A into B to achieve the big O doesn't always work for people with impairments. So, when you have a disability, you have to talk. What works for me? What feels good to me? What do I like? How do we do this? And that conversation is really part of the intimacy that makes sex really powerful. So it can be as little as holding hands, as much as swinging on chandeliers. It's really about that communication. And for me, when I was first injured, I was still a virgin. So, I woke up in the hospital in the ICU and I was crying after my mom told me I was going to be paralyzed. And I was like, but I've never had sex. And my mom was like, oh, yay, my daughter's still a virgin. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Because my belief somewhere in my implicit associations and the indoctrination I got about disabled people was that they didn't have sex. And I really believed it was never going to happen. And then through education and understanding that that's not true. That's just society's idea about disabled people. I mean, research shows that there is less sex differences between men and women walking and then men and women in wheelchairs, because men and women walking are seen as masculine and feminine, and men and women in wheelchairs are seen as disabled people. And there has been such a huge push to, see them as asexual. Disabled means asexual. And so at 19, when I was back into school and I realized, yeah, my package had changed, but the person hadn't. Yes, I want to have sex someday. I had to really analyze why other people didn't see me as a viable partner, how the world was treating me so differently and putting me in this very narrow box of disabled person. And I was I was initially a theater major, but when I was Department of Rehab told me that wasn't a viable option for somebody in a chair, and that I needed to choose a different major if I was going to go back to college. And so I thought art, because, disabled people paint with their feet and their teeth, except that, I couldn't draw a stick figure before I broke my neck. And so breaking my neck didn't give me any artistic talent either. So I went into PR, and as I was thinking about this identity crisis, I thought, what is it that society's not seeing about me? And it was really the fact that I'm Ellen and I'm a woman who uses a wheelchair. I'm not just a disabled person, right? I have other identities that intersect, and I would like them to be acknowledged. And I thought about other magazines, and I really thought it would be that, oh, look at the girl broke her neck and she's back in college. Yay, triumph over tragedy. And I was like, that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the fact that I, as a woman in a wheelchair, can meet the standards of what, unrealistic as they are, because trust me, there are issues with Playboy and the representation of women that I totally, as a mom, understand women's rights, etc. But I can't fight for women's rights until I'm seen as a woman. And so if I could pose for Playboy, maybe I could shatter that idea of the perfect Playboy model by meeting their criteria, but also having a disability, which was seen on the other end of the spectrum. So that was my big push. And as a PR major, I thought, what the hell? Why not? And I wrote him a letter.
And that's how it all came about, that, hey, I want to be seen as this as well. And you just wrote a letter and they happened to say, yes, let's go with that.
Well, I wrote the letter. So I was doing some modeling at the time. I'd found one of those promotional companies that would take anybody, if you're paying them the money to take your picture. But I got
you paid them, though.
Back in the 80s, John Powers and all of those, that they would take your picture and get it to casting directors. So I had paid one of those, but I got to work with a really great photographer who, did great shots of me on the beach. We went everywhere, even though I was in the chair, and it gave me the confidence. So when I wrote them, I had a nice portfolio, and they called me and they said, hey, we want to do a test shoot. And I was like, what do I wear? And they're like, nothing. And I was like, I was young. I had no clue. But I went in and I did the test shoot. I worked with another great photographer, and his wife was the makeup artist. So I felt very safe and comfortable. And they like sex. In the photography, working with somebody with an impairment, my body doesn't work like the typical model. So we had to talk. What works? How do you want to move? So it was really intimate in the fact that we shared how to move my body. I got to know my body better. How did I feel sexy? What was I portraying? And so it was a great shoot. And then the test shot went to the publishers and to Hef. And the publisher said, "Oh, hell no, we're not doing this." But Hef said yes. And we ended up shooting literally, I think, for 3 months, like shots in studio.
Wow.
I mean, this was before Photoshop. So they were 12-hour days of Polaroids and positioning my body and sandbags. And it was a lot of work. And then we did our candids and everything. And so after I did it, the whole experience, I had to get comfortable with my body in front of people, because you got your photographer, your makeup artist, your photography assistant, you're naked or in lingerie. And so it was really such a great experience for me to not just be projecting this sexy image, but to get to know my body. What was sexy about it? How did I really feel about it? Because you have to remember, I was only that was in 86. So I broke my neck in 83. That was only 3 years after my accident. I had not gone into depth dealing with all of that. I was still, and so it was a great experience. And they were going to publish in 86, but the publishers were like, "Oh, hell no, this is exploitation. We're not going to do it." And it ended up waiting a year before it actually hit the stands. And that year was a really great growth opportunity for me, that I didn't need society's validation anymore. Because I had my own validation of my sexuality, of who I was as an individual. But then it came out in 87, and it was great. And it came out only because Hef put his foot down and said, "This is an important issue." He had just had his stroke and was dealing with his own impairments and his own mortality and disability. And so I think he related to his own processing of feeling sexy and vibrant and trying to recover that. And so my story was, for him, incredibly important, and he made sure that it got published, and then it went out there, and it was in 7 countries, and it was scary, because I didn't realize, thank God it wasn't during social media time, because I don't think I could handle the haters, because there are haters out there. So,
the immediate comments, right?
The immediate comment would have killed me, I think. So
you weren't on the cover, right, Ellen?
I wasn't on the American cover. I did make the Australian cover, but I had 8 pages, and I wasn't typically a playmate, but I had 8 pages with a story. So most playmates don't get the story, except what are your likes, what are your dislikes. Mine had a lot more, right? So mine had a lot more depth about why I was doing it, because it wasn't simply about being in Playboy. It was about making a statement about people with disabilities are sexual beings, and damn it, we would like to be seen like that, because we'd like to get laid and have partners too. And so I was really lucky that they actually did do the story and gave me the words. And then they put me on a promotional tour so I could be on Donahue, and I could be on Sally Jesse, and I could talk about these issues, because what I had realized in that year, that it really was about changing the way people with disabilities are seen in society, not only for my benefit, but for the benefit of everybody. We're all going to experience disability. It's just part of the aging process. Everybody's body changes. And if you can't adjust to that, it impacts your success in life in all areas, not just relationships, but work and family, etc.
We have
Hey, Ellen, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Well, one second, Bob. Robert's going to ask his question. Can we show a couple of the pictures that are tasteful? I think, Shawn, if you had that ready. So our back producer. But go ahead, Robert.
Okay. I know with you, you were still young and all that. What was your view of your after your injury, right? Early stages of it, of your body image. How did you feel about it? And what did it during the shoots and all that? How did you feel about that? And where was the body image that you felt after you posed for the photos?
Well, initially, I hated my body after the injury. I mean, I was so unkind to my legs, right?
Yeah.
They're not part of me. I'm not taking care of them. My legs, I had been an athlete before, so my legs were still pretty beefy and looked, quote unquote, typical. And so I would wear mini skirts. I wouldn't park in handicap spots because I was not one of them. I was different. So much denial about my body. When I started doing the photography again, and again, I will say Charles Steinberg, who I worked with, whether it was first to get my money or whatever, he really was just such an amazing photographer that he's like, let's try this, let's try that. And so I initially had an opportunity to get comfortable with my body in different positions and on different places and to get comfortable with that before Playboy. But seeing myself naked, I I mean, they did such amazing photography. Like, you're like, is that me? Really? I'll never look like that in real life because it's perfect lighting. Like, I mean, we looked for 8 hours and they'd be like, oh no, there's a shadow on her butt. Let's put it. So, but it was nice to see that this is my body and how does my body move. And so during it, I really had to get intimate with how do I move my body. I didn't want people positioning me like a Barbie doll. I wanted to move myself around. And so that made me do it. And if I needed help, how do you position me here? Which helped with communication with sex later. Like, okay, you want me laying on my side, on my hip? You're going to have to flip my legs. Like, this is, because they were incredibly respectful. So the whole process not only made me look at my body different, it made me interact with my body and made me incorporate the fact that my legs, though they didn't move on their own, were still part of my body, right? They helped me transfer, right? Their weight, they're my balance, they're still part of me. And that was incredibly empowering to realize I had everything that was there was still all of me. And then, then to see amazing photos, of course, afterward, you're like, man, that girl looks great. Sometimes, and I do this all the time, like my bathroom lighting, and my bathroom is amazing. I don't know. And I look at myself in the mirror before I leave, I'm like, damn, that girl looks great. I don't look in a mirror at all again during the day because I carry that image with me. And then I come home and I got green stuff in my teeth and my hair is sticking out because my glasses have been on my head. I'm like, damn, did I look like? But I think that and this is so cliche, but when you feel positive about yourself and you're putting it out there, that's what people respond to. It's not that super, you can be dressed to the nines and have the best makeup, but if you're feeling shitty, people aren't drawn to you. And you can be in torn jeans and no makeup. And if you're happy and you're just feeling good, and I think people are drawn to that. And so if I can see my image in my head that I look good in that mirror and I carry that with the attitude, I think it's out there. Just makes me feel better.
And
that all translates the vibe. Huh? It translates the vibe to others, right? Just around, just like positive and negative. It's just that good vibe, right? And that's the attraction.
But smile at people. I mean, I'm walking on campus and people's faces are in their phone, and I smile at them and I say good morning, and what? Somebody's like right? They smile though. And then that smile, I mean, when you smile, literally, endorphins go to your brain. That's just a chemical reaction of smiling, whether you feel it or not. You feel like crap. If you smile, your brain says, oh, happy, and it sends endorphins. So that little pick me up can make the difference for anybody who's having a bad day out there. So you just, like you're having a shitty day, just go smile at people and say hi. And they may think you're weird, but you feel better for smiling. And a lot of people smile back.
And the other day that's what I was trying to do, to tell others out there is I just give off a good attitude and all of a sudden people wanted to meet me, know me, date me, and because I just wanted to carry this positive, say hi. And I felt good. And people, if you're looking down at the ground when you're at the store, no one's going to say hi to you. But if you're looking up and you smile and you say hi back or whatever, they're definitely going to want to, say hi and get to know who you are. And there's probably one of your pictures he's putting up.
Yep, that is the ultimate that was in every PR ad. I got tired of it, but it is they really did a great job. And again, yes, it helped me get comfortable with my body and be more positive. But I think anybody can begin that journey and their own work. Honestly, looking at yourself. I mean, you're not going to like everything, but what do you like, and focus on that. And that was that. So there was a lot of controversy because Playboy only showed me in my wheelchair in my candids. They did not exclude the chair, which some people said they did. It was very obvious I was in a wheelchair in my candids, but that was purposeful because we were focusing on me as a woman, right? And the wheelchair was part of that. Whereas then 7 years later, though, most people who pose for Playboy get television offers, career offers, modeling offers, etc. I did not, right? Even though I was in 7 countries and that. So New Mobility wanted to do, Still Seriously Sexual, and Chris Volker, just an amazing photographer,
Rest in
shot me,
peace.
and really we wanted to incorporate the chair into the sexy to sort of say, here it is now. It's not just that I'm sexy just because I'm a woman and meet Playboy standards, but I'm also sexy in the chair. The chair is part of that. And so I got to do that amazing shoot with Chris Volker, who also shot me when I was pregnant, right before I gave birth, literally 2 days before I gave birth. And then he shot me with the baby right after we got home from the hospital. So I have Chris is my, he's just incredible. So that's another of Chris's shots. But it was great. I think pictures, selfies, I just did why do we take selfies? Because the looking glass self, this is psychology, but it's not simply the way we see ourselves, but the way we think others see us. So those messages that we get back, we put it out there. So for people with disabilities, we're often treated poorly. We're often seen as bitter or angry or patted on the head or talked to really loud. And, that impacts the way we perceive ourselves, and we have to shift that narrative. So, we have to put out there who we are and change that image. It's a lot of pressure sometimes because sometimes you're just having a shitty day. But people, if you have a shitty day and you have a visible impairment, it's like, oh, it's because Robert's bitter. Oh, it's because Robert's disabled. It's like, no, I just got cut off and somebody just did this and it has nothing to do with it. But somehow people perceive the chair as being the center of our identities in life when it's just one aspect of our identity.
Now, you talked about, you got to do the tour after of Donahue and Sally. And, I'm a big Howard Stern fan. So I got to hear the Howard Stern, and actually I got to know your ex-husband at the time, Dave. And that was the first time I met him. It was on the radio. And then shortly when you guys got back from New York, I got to actually meet him. But, so what was the positive of all that from the audience of not in the disabled world, but what was the positive of everybody else and the negative?
I didn't get a lot of negative. So thank God, again, no social media, and Playboy really, I think, weeded out any negative letters before they sent them to me. So I had a filter system. Howard Stern was great. I think that the best compliment Howard gave me was like, I do you. I'm like, okay, see, so the wheelchair is not a barrier to doing somebody. And it was great. My ex was there. That was one of the first shows we did together. And, his friends gave him a really hard time when we met at a bar in New Jersey. Like, oh, I'll save you from this disabled girl. Like, you're just being, because he was a nice guy. And they're like, he's just being nice to the girl in the wheelchair. And my ex was like, no, I'm staying here with the girl. Like, I'm not, because he had his own car. They're like, dude, we're driving home. And he was like, okay, you don't need to save me. I'm not just being a nice guy. I find this woman attractive. I find her intelligent. I find her fun. And so it was great to do the show because David he didn't talk a lot, but he did get to share that it wasn't, it was about me being who I was. And the chair, one of the great things about him was the chair was just part of who I was, but it was who I was as an individual that was attractive to him. And, there were so many times that we would go with his friends and they wouldn't even know I was in a wheelchair because he'd be like, my girlfriend or my fiance Ellen, and he'd talk about things that I did, and then we'd show up and they'd be like, you didn't say she was in it, because it was just part of who I was, right? It wasn't the defining factor, and it wasn't that he was denying it. It's just that he didn't think it was the most important factor about me, and that was what was great. But Howard Stern was great. He was funny. I think it brought the issue to an audience that wouldn't normally see it or hear it. And again, the more we can spread the word, the more, there are a lot of people living with impairments that are invisible, that are dealing with the same self-esteem, body image issues, the internalized ableism, the inability to really share their struggles and who they are for fear of being rejected. So I think that, it resonates that yes, my disability is visible, but nobody comes out when you're first meeting people and says, these are all my skeletons, right? Here, like me with all this. Nobody does that. So, in some ways, having the visible impairment is easier because that I'm not going to be able to get up that flight of steps, that there's going to have to be another way. So some of the issues are there to deal with. I think Howard Stern really brought it to a broader audience, and it was a great show. I had a great time on it. He was incredibly respectful to me, and when he wasn't, Robin was like my advocate. So if you ever listen to the Howard Stern show, you'll see me like Howard gets stupid, like his Howard dumb, and I'd be like, I'm going to talk to Robin now because this is about issues. It's not about just getting hits or getting people to laugh. It's really about this issue of the way society perceives disability and the way it associates disability with being asexual, and definitely wanted to change that.
Yeah, that's great. So Howard and the tour, Playboy, then comes along, marriage, kid. Where do you go from there? And knowing we have this Ellen that we knew as somebody who is making payment for us and that kind of disability of relationships and sexuality, where does it go from there? And I know that from time to time you've been in ads and things like that, and you're a writer for New Mobility magazine and a couple other publications. So where Ellen after a kid? I mean, I know where it is, but I want, for those who don't, like, I know her, and you can say it.
So it was, I was incredibly lucky. I mean, I met Dave. I was right after my 30th birthday. So I had dated after that and traveled, and I did a lot of speaking on disability and sexuality around the world. I spent some time in Australia and Canada and England. And one of the things in my own journey of disability, I really began to look at the research and the more academic side of why do we see what we see and why do we treat people with disabilities like that. So I was incredibly lucky to do that. And then I met Dave, and that was about 30, and I wasn't getting the acting career that I wanted. I had been doing some part-time teaching while I was going to school. I was going to be an MFT, but I have no patience, so I suck as a therapist. I'd be like, suck it up, which is not good therapy. So I went into teaching, and I really liked teaching, and I sort of fell into that more suburban, get my teaching credential, teaching kids, get married, have a kid, get the house. I actually have a white picket fence because as a kid, my mom was a single mom. So yeah, I fell into all of that crap, and I lived it, and it was great. I built a great home. I wanted to get pregnant. I had difficulty getting pregnant. I met my husband at 30. We got married when I was 33. We started to try to have kids when I was 34, and we got pregnant and miscarried a couple of times. And again, everybody assumes that it was because of the disability. Oh, you can't get pregnant because you're disabled. I'm like, well, I hate to say it, but my husband's sperm just wasn't strong enough to penetrate the egg, right? That was part of the problem. My athletic, handsome, tennis-playing husband, but also being older and having older eggs. So it was a combination. But we did interuterine. We tried that. His sperm, direct, get those sperm and the egg in the party together, and that once, but it didn't. It was a blighted ovum. We miscarried again. So we had to do in vitro. His sperm, my egg, but the magic of a doctor. And on a third try, we got pregnant. We were so. That was it. We were tapped out financially, and I think that as moving from playmate to working person to wife, the idea of not being a mom, I had to, again, go through this whole identity thing. What if I can't be a mom? What if I adopt? So we're always going through the identity thing. So I did get pregnant, had my daughter when she was born. I had natural childbirth, and my doctor was incredible. When she got her shoulders out, he said, sit up and pull her out. And I did. And she has a little bit.
You did have a little bit of difficulty with dysreflexia.
Yes. Yeah. So the medical profession does not understand quadriplegia. They still don't. I will tell you, doctors all the time. Is that real? Yes, it's real, and it could kill me. Thank you very much. So we were prepared for it with the birth, like we knew, have drugs and the birth prepared for it. What we weren't prepared for was that nobody. I don't know how many women know this because I didn't know it even then. That when women breastfeed, they have reverse contractions that are just as strong as birth contractions. And the reverse contractions are because you're shrinking your uterus. So the night after my daughter was born and she was breastfeeding, and I didn't want to take the pain pill before she breastfed because I was, worried. So they didn't give it to me. Like 5 minutes in, I could feel. If people have you can feel it sort of moving up your toes. That sweat that you get, and I was like. I called the nurse and I said, take the baby, get help. And they're like, what? I'm like, take the baby now, get help. And I went into full-blown dysreflexia. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They gave me so many drugs, and I was so lucky I didn't stroke out. My daughter was in the room with me. And it's just, again, there's no information. There's still so little information in the medical community about people with disabilities, about spinal cord injury, about women with spinal cord injury. And I almost died from it. Luckily, I didn't. My daughter came home. She learned to crawl up on my chair immediately. I think she spent the first 2 years of her life on a boppy on my lap, breastfeeding as much as possible. And then I just got a career in education. When I was incredibly lucky, right after she was born, I had been a school teacher full time. And I was like, I can't raise 25 other children and have any energy to raise my own. So I got a job at a university and got to be a professor, where I have been there now for 23 years, and I love it.
Right across the street from you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and my daughter goes there now, so that's nice. And her boyfriend goes there now. So,
and as on Tuesday, as I'm saying, we have a special guest, Ellen Stohl, our Tom, our great Tom. He's just like, Dr. Stohl, he just can't get that doctor out. And I'm like, I don't know her as the doctor. I know her as my good old friend Ellen. That way we go in and did karaoke singing Walk Like a Man, where everybody jaw just dropped.
Yeah, their jaws drop. We would just go in there and do it on purpose just to see them freak out. And I still do things like that just to see that. But, you settle into suburbia, you get into the comfort zone, the writing. I still did a lot of writing, some modeling, but, I was focused on raising my kid, doing things with her, volunteering in the classroom, just being a mom, right? And so if I was having a bad day, it was not because of the wheelchair, it was because my kid was grumpy in the morning and wouldn't get dressed. I couldn't get her to school. Like all the things that other people go through that the wheelchair can magnify, but it isn't the source. I mean, when you live 40 years in a chair, the chair really just becomes the way that you get around. It's part of who you are. I mean, I definitely identify as a disabled person, but it's not the focus. So, did that. And then my daughter, got into cosplay, and I do cosplay with her now, and she's into roller derby. I think it's because she spent so much of her young life on wheels that she's now battling people on wheels. And, I'm still really involved in her life. And, your marriage goes through, it waxes and it wanes. I mean, like any other marriage, rarely is there ever an issue that has anything to do with my impairment. It's the same issues that married couples go through. And, our recent split really is going through menopause and how menopause affects women and, how it affects the relationship. And do you just grow into different directions? Again, when you tell people, they're like, oh, it's because you're disabled. I'm like, no, it's because we're like any other married couple that can either work through the difficulties or not work through the difficulties. And so, that's where we are now. So, just going through that, getting older, but feeling, again, I think, Bobby, and I saw you because you went through a lot of, health issues, but getting to the other side of health issues, staying strong. I still work out 2 days a week and stretching. I will say stretching. You saw the picture of me stretching. All my students saw it today, but I've always been stretching. And I think stretching has made me mobile. I go to the Brown Center at Cal State Northridge and get a workout where the people do my range of motion, and staying as fit as possible so that when those health crises come, the healthier you are, the more likely you to get through it. And then also appreciating, not getting a power assist on my chair, right? Like not having to be, I'm so buff, I'm just going to push myself forever. It's like, I think everybody should get a power assist right away so you're not blowing out your shoulders. And if you want to go run marathons, run the marathons. You want to go climb mountains, climb the mountains. But in your daily living, take the assist, right? So that you can be there in the long haul. Because, I'll be 60 on 4/24/24, and I feel healthier than I have, I think, in a long time. Like I feel like I can go to Greece, I can travel, I can do things. Yes, I need support to help me with certain things, but independence isn't doing it alone. I told my students this day, it's getting the job done. So looking at where I want to go, what do I need to get there, and how do I get those resources and support? That's the key to me. And so I'm able to, deal with the changes, some positive, some negative. Life is never a bowl of cherries, but again, smiling and realizing that you'll get through. You don't get over anything. I don't ever believe we get over anything. Sometimes I will cry when I talk about my accident. People are like, see, she's not over it. I'm like, no, I'm just going through it. Like we go through it to the other side, and remembering the pain and the difficulty of that journey is what gives you the insights and the strength and the motivation to keep going forward. You don't want to forget and get over. You want to go through and acknowledge and learn. And that's what I think is the most important thing. And that's what I'm doing now, learning how to deal with divorce, which is woohoo, not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we are rolling over the hill and we talk about that aging part. And you said, you've had your times and tribulations of it. What has been the most difficult now that it's been 40 years plus?
Sex drive, like the waning of a sex drive as somebody who broke the barriers of sex and disability. That was my identity. And then to have your sex drive wane because of menopause, because of changes, is like, I want to be that young person again. I want to be wild and crazy and swing on chandeliers. How do I get that? And that's just rejourneying to who I am, realizing that it may not be swinging on chandeliers. It may be something different now, and finding that in a partner that is compatible with that. That I think is the aging, right? We change, our interest changes, our bodies change. Like my wrist, like, oh my God, transferring, like, shit, my wrist. Like, I gotta wear a brace sometimes if I'm gonna go a long distance. So again, acknowledging those changes so you can get the support. So I used to drive a Mustang convertible. God love my Mustang convertible. Blonde, driving the Mustang convertible. My chair sticking out the back. People could not put together. She's in a even caught like, go. I'm like, can't get out of the car, wheelchair. And they're like, oh, yeah, because that's just not an image. But at one point, when my daughter was in kindergarten, I would have to go get the chair out, transfer out, get her out of the car seat, go into the classroom to drop her off, go back, get in my car, take it all apart. And it's like, oh my God, I don't want to go anywhere. It's so much work. And then realizing that this current situation is not optimizing my function. It's not allowing me to live fully. And so that's when I got a car that I can drive from my chair in, right? Like, it goes down in easy peasy, lemon squeezy, 2 seconds. And, we have a hard time with those transitions because we feel like it is diminishing our power, when in fact, finding the appropriate assistive technology, adaptive equipment, and support optimizes our power. And so, it's that fine line. Am I relying on it too much, or does it optimize my joy in life? And so I think that's the hardest point is, keeping that balance.
Yeah.
Maintaining strength and then optimizing.
And I think Robert can testify.
Yeah, well, I just you kind of know, I'm kind of going through that transition. I'm going to be 70 in a few months, 50 years in the chair. So I've always kind of been pretty active. I've worked most of my disabled life. Like, I retired 7 years ago. I've worked 42 years. But I'm going through the transition part now. First off, I always say my age and disability are crossing paths, and it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think the disability would be a problem. I kind of figured maybe aging, but now I feel more disabled, if anything. I've always had kind of a good image of myself and a little bit of confidence, sometimes maybe too cocky or something here and there. But that was kind of my drive. And but I'm going through the transition right now where I'm kind of been a car guy and truck guy my whole life, having something always kind of nice looking and all that. So I just bought a van with the ramp and all that. I finally gave into this. I don't know if I was trying to put it off because of image or because I felt weaker, or I don't really know. All I know, it was a hard decision to make, but and this has only happened within the last couple of months. But it was the best decision I made in a long time because of I gave up that form and really got into the function piece of it. And I feel safer now. I'm not tweaking my arms and shoulders. My shoulders are shot, and I should have had surgeries, but I'm getting too old to recover, and I bounce back. That kind of the way I feel about it. So I kind of just dealing with how it's thrown at me. But yeah, the transition piece, because I thought before the transition would be, oh yeah, it'd be easy. I've already transitioned from 19 years old and all that. Oh yeah, I've done it. We've been there before. Done it a few times in my life. But right now, it's hard, and I really, I feel good. I mean, life's been good, but just dealing with that transition of aging and the disability, because I don't compare myself to an able-bodied when I was able-bodied. I compare myself to my younger disability life when I can do transfers from the stairs to the ceiling and all that kind of stuff. Now it's like just a transfer from my chair into the driver's seat is. So yeah, I totally relate. And like I said, it's not that easy with keeping that body image. It's never really bothered me, other than my legs atrophied pretty quick when I was younger, and I didn't have any spasms or anything. So I didn't wear shorts. I really don't nowadays, other than around the house. But it's really, I don't know if it's the body image, the thing that I need care, that I need to help, my assistance. Because I have no problem using a power assist for a wheelchair, but it's hard. I just, it's nice to hear you saying, and that there is. It's not just me. I'm not on that island.
And you're not, and it's not just people with disabilities, anybody aging. Like our identities are changing all the time and we have to adjust to them. So look at sports athletes that can't freaking retire, right? Because their identity is so wrapped up in being that sports person. It's like, man, you should have retired years ago because you're not doing yourself any favors. It's that ability to adjust and not reinvent yourself because you're still the same person, but revisualize yourself in this new age that you are. And it's not easy. I mean, Chris Volker, after I was pregnant, like, let me tell you, your stomach is not going to be, any woman's stomach has trouble recovering from being pregnant. When you're a quad, you really can't recover. And I really had to deal with like looking at my body with that. I would say I look like a snowman, right? Without a bra on that lifts the boobs up, the boobs fall into the belly, that falls into the belly, that falls into the legs, right? I felt like a freaking snowman, which in my, that there's a naked picture of a Homer Simpson of somebody naked with the boobs look like his eyes, looks like his mouth. I'd be like, that's me. And, and I lost again my sense of sexuality right after the baby was born because I felt that. But I always think photography or looking at yourself is one of the best ways. And Chris Volker shot me after the pregnancy with the baby and covered me with mud and really found me this sort of earth mama feeling of coming in touch with the beauty of the way my body is right now. And it's hard because we get so many external messages about what is attractive. You're supposed to be fit. You're supposed to be this. You're supposed to be that. And then comparing ourselves to the young people in chairs. Oh my God, there's just, I can't do that. I'm not going out to the clubs anymore like I used to. And that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm less, but it's not easy. I mean, we're bombarded constantly with how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to be, how our sex drive is. I have friends that are my age. They're like, oh, my sex drive is great. And I'm like, okay, but mine's not. And finding others, women that are my age, they're like, no, mine is gone too. Like, okay, so what do we do about that? It's finding those like-minded people going through similar experiences that normalize it. And trust me, you are not alone with the whole, man, my body, what it was. Because I will tell you, every professional athlete out there is going through the same thing. I actually want to work with our student athletes at CSUN to help them revitalize themselves after. You're not going to play sports forever, but if your identity has been since you played soccer from the time you were 3 and through college, transition out of that because we all pick up these identities, but they're always shifting. So we have to be able to shift with them.
Yeah, and I think that goes with our image of using adaptive equipment that we didn't use before. I'm currently going through that. Is this going to look good for me and comfortable for me to use, or is it this? And I'm trying to figure it out because I know I need help. I know that I can't get on my ramp van anymore like I used to unless I have the longest rolling start push and the driveway just right, slanting. Made it up, but. And transfers are getting harder. And waking up, and the first thing I do when I roll to my bathroom is, it's not one now, and it's not 2. It's like 5 different medications going. Now there's 5 there, on top of a vitamin and a vitamin C, multi and a vitamin C. And I'm just like, where did this change, and I go, and let me get the ones for night ready because I don't want to do that at night. Because at 8 o'clock, I'm like, is it time to go to bed yet? Get out of my wheelchair. I mean, it's 8 o'clock, and I know that some people are just gearing up to go, and like I used to, and hit borderline at 9 o'clock at night, and then now it's like at this time, it's just crazy how we change, and and it's hard to adjust, and adjustment is always been the hardest for anybody, disabled or not. And like you said, Ellen, with sports figures, and it can be like that with somebody's career. Robert was, Robert retired. What am I going to do now? And he found, a path, but it's a crooked path, and we all go on it, and it's part of it, but we struggle with it. I highly recommend a therapist for it. I talk about it with my therapist, and also not only on top of all that, if you're someone in my position that is going through, I'm the adult now, and my parents are my kids,
Yeah.
and they're not good kids.
Hey,
You
back
know,
to this.
Yeah, that's it.
one is
What you
a
put them
total,
through.
yeah, they're definitely giving me a run for their money, my money, as well as I probably did it for them when I was young. And how crazy, finding out from the neighbor that we jumped off the roof when we lit the pool on fire, and it was like, you really had to tell my mom, huh? So I'm sure it's payback. I'm pretty sure, but it's just weird when we hit that part of life, and that because one day Zoe, how old is Zoe now?
Zoe is 20. When I turn 60, she turns 21, and we're going to we're going to go to
Oh
Greece.
my God, is she 21?
Yeah, she's 21. Her boyfriend has been staying with us because housing. Just don't even get me started on how hard it is to get housing as a student in
Oh
Los
yeah,
Angeles.
yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. But I mean, it is that transit. Everybody's always transitioning, and it's hard, and you're grieving. You can't just again. You don't get over it. You have to grieve and move through it. I am not who I was. Who am I now? And that is sad, and it's painful, and yet that's how growth happens. Real growth happens by acknowledging the grief and the pain. We're not the same. We do need more help. So I'm not this person, but who am I and who can I be? And I think it's not easy. I hate when people are like, oh, but it's easy. It's like, no, I broke down crying in my freaking class today. We're talking about stuff. And I'm like, sorry guys. Then my students are crying about their experiences, and we're all crying about different changes that we have gone through in our lives and our identities. And it's like, it was so cathartic that they could see their professor. Like, I don't have all the answers, right? I go through this just like everybody else, and we have to adapt and adjust. But the key is that it's always adapting and adjusting. There is no end point where you are your best self. You're always your best self, doing the best that you can with what you have in the situation that you're in, and trying to figure out what you need to get where you want to go. And luckily, I have the support systems around me. I have my daughter. I have an in-home aide that picks up exactly what I want from the grocery store. I have the Brown Center to support my health, but it's acknowledging that those are the things, those 5 pills you take, and that vitamin and that vitamin C, they help you be your best self. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't look at it as, oh my God, I have to take all of these. These are helping me be my best self. And everybody's going to be, if they want to be, it's the denial of the supports that you need, that, as Robert said, perpetuating an image that your body can't keep up with is the hard part, right? Because you're going to hurt I know people that literally walking causes them so much pain that after 20 minutes they're sitting down and crying, but they won't use a cane or a crutch or a wheelchair because of that image. It's like, how is that serving your life? And that's what I have to look at, is what is serving my life that ultimately, helps me be and do what I want to do. And that's going to change too, because, I don't know what I'm going to do at 60 or 65 or where I'm going to be. But, my daughter will still be hanging out with me, I hope, but traveling the world. Amazing because of cosplay. Like, she got me into cosplay. I do an amazing Cersei Lannister, and we do mom and daughter cosplays, all like character together, and she includes me in that. But that's because I take an interest, right? And so whether it's an interest in your own family, an interest in an organization like Triumph, an interest in Live to Roll, an interest in something outside of yourself, that interest blossoms into a new identity, right? Into a new opportunity. So it's when you shut yourself down because you're afraid you're not who you were, that's when it stops. It takes effort, and it's not easy.
Yeah. And I think after going through the health scare that I did last year, and for all year, if it was the surgery from the abscess that didn't heal, and the heart complications from COVID and almost dying there, that really put a spin on my life and who I was, and am I going to die early? But with that, you said something that just my best friends are, yes, my vitamin C, my multivitamin, and something I've been really open about because I want others to experience what I experience, and that's my Zoloft.
Right.
Holy freaking cow. I love it. Every morning, yes, I'm looking at the pill bottles and going, okay, they're older, but man, I cannot wait to say I'm taking what is making me feel like alive today. I
Good, yeah.
feel so alive, and I feel like I'm I feel 20 years younger, even though my neck and back and like everything else doesn't, but my soul feels 20 years
Yeah.
younger because finally, it helps to get through those my body image changes, my now needing more adaptive equipment, knowing I need more help, like being in public nowadays. Oh, screw that. I wait for the door to be open for me. I don't try to do it
Yeah.
myself anymore.
Yes. Looking
I'm
for
like,
that. You don't
thank
mind the help
you.
now.
It's about time somebody showed up here.
Power assist. So, Bobby, I will say that the one thing that ultimately changed my life was a power assist. The manual chair power assist. I will say, um, I recommend it for everybody. Man, I can go across campus faster than anybody. I have the Natty one. If you're looking for sponsorship, I would reach out to that. I mean, Smart Drive is great, but it's one directional. I can go on carpet. I can go on grass. I'm constantly in control, and I use it around the house. I have assist in my house and outside of my house. But that extra assist allows me to get up and go to campus at 9 a.m. in the morning and come do this show at 4 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, because I save my energy for working out, right? I go to the gym, I work out for my muscles, but my daily life should not be my workout. My daily life should be me living and,
Yeah.
utilizing all the resources available to me to live, to take vitamins, to get enough sleep, to ask for help when you can't get something, standing in the aisle and saying, "Hey, can you get that down for me from the top shelf?" As opposed to going, "Oh, I don't really need that." And that it's tough. It's tough to change and realize we need supports, but once you acknowledge it and you utilize them, you live so much more fully.
Yeah.
Just recently, if I'm not mistaken, there was a celebration of an anniversary for your cover shoot.
Well, it wasn't a celebration. So, and this is it's on A&E. It's season 8 of Secrets of Playboy. They contacted me this last January and wanted to do a piece on the diversity angle that Hef did, because he has promoted diversity. Yes, he loves the big buxom blondes, which I fit, but he also fought for diversity. He fought for Black playmates. He fought for the first trans playmate, Inez, and he fought for me. He really did fight for me, and I was really hesitant because I was like, yeah, Secrets of Playboy. You guys were just talking about the underbelly. That wasn't my experience. I do not want to. So it came out on August 14th. You can still get it. It'll be on Hulu soon, and was a great, amazing revisit to why I did it, to where it's brought me to now, and to how I feel now. And it was just incredible to sort of see those stages in my life, and how you said everything that you do, nothing is a straight path, nothing is up the ladder. It's a labyrinth, and we take turns in different directions, but each direction we take enhances our identity and who we are. And so to be able to see my path again, to celebrate the pictures, to celebrate the breakthroughs I made, to acknowledge that, was incredible. I am so proud that the Disability Rights Los Angeles is honoring me with the Disability Rights Entertainment. It's the dream. Disability Rights Entertainment, Arts and Media. I can spell dream. Award, September 23rd. And this has been won by DreamWorks, Holly Hunter. And it's because they have seen my journey from posing for Playboy in July '87, which is almost 40 years ago, um, to here. And that I continue to work in the media. I still do commercials. I've got a couple of great ones on YouTube. I've done great stuff with my daughter as mother and daughter, where I am seen as a mom who is in a wheelchair, which, just helps see that people with disabilities are viable partners and parents, which is important. So to be, that journey is great. And this piece was just sort of a capstone for me. And I'm going into a new stage in my life. So where do I go from here, right? Because I'm transitioning from being a wife to being an ex-wife, to being a part of a partnership, to being a single mom with a daughter, to And how does that look? Because that ableism is still there. When you say, "Oh, I'm getting a divorce," people are like, "Oh, because you're in a wheelchair. You got tired of being in a wheelchair."
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
nothing to do with the wheelchair. But I have to face that ableism again, right? So that look. So it's really powerful, and it was great. It was such a great thing, and then to be honored. And now I'm going to go to Greece. I just got hooked up with people in Greece. I'm going to do a story for New Mobility so I can write off my trip because you get a divorce, your finances. So your goals, but you have plans, and through the hardships, you always just what is one step forward somewhere. Maybe it's just going to therapy. Maybe it's joining the Triumph group or watching Live to Roll and meeting people. Right, this is so important. Finding people who are going through similar issues because you're not alone. Everybody is going through this shit. How many couples get divorced when their kids go into college, right?
Yeah.
And out of the home. It's phenomenal. Like there's an article on silver splits, right? This is not uncommon. It's not because I'm in a wheelchair. It's just what can happen, but how do you move through it? And I think that that's so essential.
And a lot of times we put it on ourselves, and our disability community puts it on our peers that, it's the disability. And it's not. It's not because I ran over his toe 100,000 times and he finally said, that's it. It's because this happens to everybody, disabled or not. And I think we, somehow people, and I really blame even our own community that think like, oh, first they think it's because Ellen's in a chair. No, it's called life.
Yeah, it's just like,
I fight with my wife, here and there. And it's not about, sometimes it can be about the disability because she's ready to fall asleep and I'm like, can you get one more thing? Yeah. She's ready to divorce me then because, I can't get out of bed. There's a disability, but no, it's about other things. It's about life and it's about what we're going through as a family. And,
yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
not running
matter.
over his toe, Bobby. It's not running over his toe, Bobby. It's me running into his shoes left in the middle of the floor. Like, right?
Hey, I deal with it too. I got it the same way.
After
Just
30
run over them.
years together, you still don't, move the Amazon packages so I can get through the freaking hallway, right? So it can be both sides, but again, it's really not. The disability magnifies some of those issues. Like, can you get this for me because I'm in a chair and really you're able-bodied, so getting out of the bed to go grab that is going to take 5 seconds, and me, it's going to take 20 minutes, and how much energy? But that just magnifies it. There are wives that are able-bodied asking their husbands who just sit down to go get something. There are husbands
say the same thing. Yeah.
wives who just got done cooking dinner and cleaning and sitting down for the first time, ask them to get it doesn't, the disability doesn't dictate the relationships. It's just part of it. And the more we can move away that this is just one aspect of the identity, there's a lot there, and we carry our childhood shit with us. We carry our grade school shit with us. We carry the rejection for not making the softball team is in there. The first breakup, like all of that is still there, and that is as much a part of us as the accident or being born with the impairment. It's all still part of our psyche and who we are, and you have to acknowledge that it's a package. It's never one thing.
Well, and I think about the aging is disabled or not, we all grow different. We're not the same person as we are in our 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. We start growing each time, and sometimes it can happen not even with husband and wife, but it can also happen with friendships.
Yes.
That was they were a good friend of mine, but because we grew in different manners, it could be political, it could be interest. They met somebody, so you don't see them as much, and it's not the same. They moved away. We all go through things in life that we change, and sometimes it affects the one who your partner, the one that stands by your side, and it can happen, disabled or not. I think that's what we are trying to learn as someone aging, getting into that next part of life. That we're not Benjamin Button where we're getting younger. We're actually still getting younger.
And in some ways, we're better equipped because we have done a transition, right? We've been through a transition. We know there's another side. So it doesn't mean we don't rage, doesn't mean we don't hurt, doesn't mean we don't feel the pain, doesn't mean we don't feel the frustration. It is, why is that going on my screen? No, I don't want to renew my antivirus. It's that we know that just, even if it's just getting up and brushing your teeth today and then getting up and brushing your teeth and taking a shower in a week, one little step at a, there is another side to move through to. And a lot of people don't, haven't experienced that. It seems like the end. And all I can say to anybody, it's never the end. The one thing you can count on is that there is movement. And if you just keep moving a little, you will, at the end of the year, I tell my students, if you just learn one letter a week, in half a year, you'll know all the letters, right? You see that movement. And we often don't acknowledge it. So if you just gained a half a pound a year, in 20 years, you're 10 pounds heavier, right? And 10 pounds can be different, but you never notice it because it's slow. So you may not always notice. Sometimes you just got to give your kudos. I got up today. I brushed my teeth. I actually ate food. Woohoo! And then smile and go out and smile at somebody else. Because I feel like you said it, Bobby, that endorphins that you get and that you give means that you matter, because you do.
Right. And the best part of growing old, though, is the wise and the wisdom that I have gained, and wish I had this in my teens and 20s, that I do now. Now I might care about reading a little political news where I never would it. Now I might try something interesting, and I love clams and mussels and oysters and can eat them all day. I didn't like that when I was 20. I love them now. And my wife's so grossed out by it. And I'm like, she goes, you are so weird about food. You hate, a soggy tomato, but hell, you can eat a booger. Yeah. I don't know why, but I like it, and that's the growth that we have and that we learn about ourselves. And not only that, and then we put on top of this nice little layer of cake, a disability. If, it's changing, Robert, you can explain this. Changing with your bladder, Robert.
Yeah. I'm just experiencing different things in my life now that never were an issue before. I've always been working hard and a lot of in a stressful and pressure job, and I kind of burn out. It's just I kind of stopped taking care of my shoulders and things like that because I had to work. I always say I was a workaholic, but I hated work. It's just that work ethic that I had to be there. And anyway, so now that I've slowed down, I do enjoy it because I've always kind of worked hard, played hard, the whole scam. And now I'm kind of just enjoy taking it easy. Especially with the pandemic coming around, that kind of made me a homebody. I started doing things around the house, started doing things in the house because I was home more. And for the first time in my 30-some years of owning the house, I got to enjoy it because before I was gone or working or whatever. So now I'm slowing down, but I'm also experiencing different little health issues that relate to the spinal cord injury. And one of them right now is my bladder. And I don't know. And so that kind of, sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and go, oh, here we go again. But I've been at it a long time, so I managed to allow myself to feel a little down or whatever, but then I can pull myself up, get out, down, make sure I don't get in a rut. But the hardest part, I think, of this whole disability, I mean, when I was younger and all that, the disability wasn't so it wasn't a big thing for me. I mean, because you were young and resilient and things like that. But it's the hardest part now is for me now as I age. I'm not, don't get me wrong. I enjoy my life. It's good. It's just it's getting hard now. Before it was hard, but you pulled it off. Now it's just going, man, boy, that was a rough transfer. Or
right. Yeah. And bladder and bowel. I like, what do they say when we get together? Bladder, bowel, and sex. What the first thing we talk about? The first bladder and bowel and sex, because we're all dealing with bodily functions that don't work right. And as you age, I mean, that was part of my drive too. More likely to get a bladder infection. Can't recover from a bladder infection as easy from intercourse, right? So, that plays a role into it. I will say, I wish they'd had it when I was younger. I get Botox in the bladder, which relaxes the bladder because I was having the spasms and peeing, and I sleep with a pad and always have, simply so that if I have an accident, I don't have to worry about the whole bed being changed, right? That's embarrassing. To tell a partner, and when you have sex, we're going to put something down because this has to happen, or I might pee when we have sex, or my bathroom might go. you have to talk about it, but it's still shameful. It's still embarrassing. And when it changes, like when you're having a bladder that triggers every 2 seconds, you can't get to the bathroom on time. Even pads aren't holding it. You have to deal with like, you can be out in public and have a pad and nobody sees it because you're in your chair, but you feel it. And again, that childhood shame about body belief. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all exacerbated. All people are dealing with their prostates and their bladders and their bowels of the age, but for those with impairments, access to accessible bathrooms and stuff, or that we can't hold, or that it's going to go when we don't know. I mean, come on, Depends is a huge $1 million company because they're not for spinal cord injuries or people with disabilities, because the whole freaking population is dealing
That's a
with
good one.
bowel and sex issues, right? Viagra is because able-bodied men, are dealing with not being able to get it up. So the whole system, everybody's dealing with this. It's magnified because we're in the chair. And because we're in the chair, we're often under a lot of pressure to project this image that we're not what society tells us we are, right? We are sexy, we are strong, we are capable. Because anytime we show weakness, that's what they hone in on. Oh, I knew you were this age.
Yeah.
I knew
That's
you were
exactly
unhappy.
it.
I knew you were bitter. I knew it. You're like, yeah, I knew if I cry about my accident, I knew she wasn't over it. And I'm like, dude, I'm so over my accident, but reliving
Yeah.
that I back at 18 makes me cry. Reliving the bias and hatred I had for myself and the thoughts of my future makes me cry. Doesn't mean I don't love my life. I would never go back
Right.
and not have injury, right?
Yeah.
If I did, I wouldn't have been married to David for 28 years. I wouldn't have had my daughter, who is like the soul of my life. I wouldn't have traveled where I did what I did. Yeah, Kirk Kilgore, if you remember Kirk Kilgore, high, incredible quad, 6 foot golden god of volleyball that broke his neck in Italy. He was my hero. And he always said, walking would make my life better. Walking would make my life easier, but it wouldn't make my life better. So walking would
Yeah.
make my
That's
life,
good.
but it
That's
doesn't
good.
make, and that's the key, right? What makes my life better? And that is that adaptive equipment. It is, do you need Botox in the bladder? Man, the shit they have out there now that they didn't have when I was injured, power assist, how much further
Yeah.
I can go on in foreign countries. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in Australia in a casino with 2 flat tires and nothing was open. Right? Flat tires with power assist, you can still move, right? You might fuck your rims up, but at least you can still move. So much more adaptive equipment, not just for us, but I tell my students all the time how many of them have disabilities, and like only 2 in the class will do it. And then I say, how many of you are wearing glasses? And they're like, half the class. And I'll say, well, you have a vision impairment and your glasses are an assistive device to help you see. And they're like, what? I don't have a disability. You do. Take your glasses off and read this passage for me. You are disabled. You cannot read this. And it's normalizing the fact that everybody, as we age and as we live life, experiences disability on a daily basis. And as we get older, we will continue to. What resources, what supports, what equipment do we need to optimize function and live fully? And the first step comes with admitting that, man, I don't have to, be number one on the tennis court anymore, right? So
Yeah.
play like you're a 50-year-old, not like you have to beat the 18-year-olds and then can't walk for 3 weeks, right? Like acknowledge where you are and honor it, because I think that's the key thing. You really have to honor that we age. Everybody ages. Disability
Yeah.
magnifies that process, makes it harder in some ways, but we've had experience, right?
Well, and it's like, yeah, it's like when I finally got back into hand cycling and discovering hand cycling with power assist. I want to be on it every day, and I'm rediscovering my cycling days again, and feeling the same. But I don't give a shit rat ass that I have the power turned up all the way. It's just like I'm moving and it's just making my life easier. But finding the
Oh, yeah.
passion and the love again of something is just so wonderful. And I had a point to that of what you were saying, and that's how happy I am about my hand bike. The assistance, we often need that, people need as well. I ride out there with an e-bike, electric bike on the beach. There's a million people on the beach with e-bikes now. Everybody has them. They're zooming by me, and I'm zooming by some, and it's like, yeah, doesn't matter if you have a disability. We're getting smarter and wiser, to experience some joy with assistance. And I think some people would never think of it as that when they're e-bike, but when it comes down to it, they're happy they have that. And it allows them to enjoy something like that. And I think with Robert's ramp and your wheels and learning how we can change as we grow and age, that's, my Zoloft that does it for me. If it's their, whatever or your glasses now. I mean, now this is me 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I have to have this chain so I know where my reading glasses are. I have a disability so bad now with my phone, and
Yeah.
some mornings I wake up and I'm reading on my squinting so freaking hard, going, Tommy, go grab your glasses. It's like that. We're gonna have to wrap up here soon, and Robert, if you want to talk about our sponsors one more time,
Sure.
and then we can all say one last thing.
Okay. All right. Want to thank very much our sponsors for making all this possible, Mobility Professionals and Urology Professionals. Mobility Professionals is a company that services Southern California with all your wheelchair and rehab equipment needs. They're a great group of people. I can't say this enough. A group of experts, and they're part of our community. All of the involvement in events are they're always there. One of the members of the team participates in all our triumphant functions and attends Live to Roll events. Also, they're a parent company, Urology Professionals. They're a national company. Urology needs, or they'll be able to take care of you on that. So make sure you give them a call and talk to them and see if your insurance is part of their network. A great group of people. Make sure you check them out. I use Mobility Professionals as much as I can. Sometimes there's an issue with insurance, but great group. They understand. They're part of us.
Yeah. Ellen, amazing as always. Thank you.
Oh, it was a great show. Great
much
guest.
for coming, and I've gotten a few texts going, "Wow, what an amazing person." Any last words of wisdom for us?
Just just acknowledge who you are. Acknowledge your sadness, your joy, and all of it. It's all part of the package. And just do one more thing each day. I mean, and smile, even when you're crying. Like my students, like it's okay. Just be and feel. And everybody is going through this. I think that's what I say. Whether you have an impairment or not, everybody is going through changes and processing new identities constantly. We have midlife crisis, we have aging crisis, we have age crisis, we're dealing with our families, etc. Just enjoy the ride even when you're crying.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Robert?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show today, and it's nice to have somebody that presents the situation and knows how to speak of it and use the right words and terminology and the direction and all that. Yeah, it's not as easy as I thought it would be. I'm okay. I've had a good life. I'm in a good life. It's just just dealing with the aging piece. I watched my parents. May they rest in peace. They age, and especially my dad was kind of tough because he was the bull, and to watch him kind of demise. And so I'm good. I'm good with what I'm going through. I am not giving up. Obviously I'm still moving forward and willing to move forward. I get up every day, smile. I think I look in the mirror and smile at myself to get those endorphins going and all that. So it's a good life. I'm not going to say anything negative. And I am really happy that I got a smart drive. That power assist is everything. I just wish I would have found out about it before 5 years ago. And that was the first time I heard of it, and it was amazing, and it's been helpful. But yeah, I'm all about making my life easier now.
You don't have to. You could be angry. F you life, F you people, F you. Like, do that. That's part of the process. I write it all the time, and then I shred it, right? Like, so, yeah. F you world, and it's okay, right? Because we get to have all the emotions. You don't have to be happy all the time. Sometimes it just sucks, right? It's just where you are and what you're going through sucks. But know that you'll move through it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. And I think for me, when you said it, Ellen, with Kurt Kilborn, and the legs would just made it easier. I don't want to change the life. And I've always thought that I thought that was
great.
For me, the same. I never wanted to experience anything but being this person. The only thing that I would, grant would just be triceps, and that's about it. That's all balance. Now I can handle the bladder infections. Yes, it scares me, and the now with the colostomy bag changed my life, and it's so much easier. Yeah, triceps, but I'm discovering triceps, like with my e-bike, like with the scooter attachment, and easier things that are going to make it. Those are going to be my triceps. The transfers are going to still suck like they always do, but but I know that to this day and age that we can look back, and especially Ellen, you can look back and we made a change, and we make changes in life. And
Yep.
sometimes I feel I give myself my own nickname called the Godfather of Southern California, because we went around and we changed a lot of people's attitudes and how they saw themselves with the disability, and going, if those two can do it, we can do it. And I think this show proves it as well. Thank you so much for everyone in the chat that said this was an amazing show. I appreciate everybody. And once again, thank you, Ellen. I love you so much. Tell Zoe I said hi. Many kisses.
I will. I recognize her. She's
Where's
such
that? Just one quick thing. Garbanzo, is he still back there?
He's still in
Oh
the
my
studio.
God.
I built him 22 years ago. We built him a studio in our garage, and he's still out there shopping for me. He is one of my in-home assistants who, like, when I send him to the store, I'm getting exactly what I need. And so it's great. And he's still with us, yeah. And again, having that support is everything, right? Having that support is so essential. So, use it. It's there. Whether it's Live and Roll, Triumph, find your people, get your support.
Yeah.
Don't
tell him I said hi, but thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Nice meeting you, Ellen. Thank you. Live to roll.